The Marketing Futurist Podcast, episode number 5. Mind-blowing inspiration to create and innovate. This is your Futurist Advantage.
Welcome to the Marketing Futurist Podcast, where your hosts, Mary Catherine Johnson and Kelly Garrett, chat with innovators who are keeping the human in marketing while driving the future of tech to give all of us a futurist advantage.
Hey there, Marketing Futurists. Guess who? It's Mary Catherine Johnson here. And unfortunately, Kelly Garrett wasn't able to join us for this particular chat. I know she is kicking herself, so that's all right. We'll let her do that and get over that in a couple of days, because I get to bring you someone that I've admired and watched for a while and just connected on Facebook and Twitter and just said, hey, would you like to come join us? And he said yes. You know, I'm just amazed every time that happens. So let me introduce to you this amazing gentleman on the screen here, John Koetsier. And John, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the Marketing Futurist.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. And you know what? You said my name right. So 10 points already.
Hey, my day is made. Thank you. Okay, so this is all about the future of marketing and not just the tools and tactics and what new software we should use and all of that. It really is, what can we do? What does our mindset need to be? What do we need to incorporate in our lives and our businesses to really give ourselves that futurist advantage? So if you could, some of the people might not know who you are, if you could just start off with the introduction of yourself and your current gig, whatever it is you're doing currently, and then we'll take it from there.
Wonderful. Love to. Thank you. And thanks so much for having me. I've done a lot of things in my life, been a technologist, led development teams, built sites, apps, online learning systems, a lot of different things. But a common thread throughout my my career has been writing. And I studied originally to be a writer, perhaps a journalist. And did, after going through a variety of startups and tech companies and roles of that nature, become a full-time tech journalist. And currently, I am not, although I still write for both Forbes and Inc. I can't spend a day without writing. I don't know. It's a disease. It's a compulsion. It's something. I feel better if I've written something and published something. I'm sick. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the last role that I had as a full-time journalist was for VentureBeat, which is a tech blog. And we did something interesting. And one of the gigs I did there was marketing technology. And that was an interesting time because that was about maybe five years ago that I was in the middle of that. And Scott Brinker was coming out with his massive landscapes of marketing technology and, 1,000 companies, 2,000 companies, 5,000 companies. And there was something really obviously happening here. And so Matt Marshall, the editor-in-chief and owner of VentureBeat, and I raised a little round of capital, raised a couple $1 million. I hired some analysts. I led new division, VB Insight, and we focused our research attention on marketing technology because it was exploding. It was complicated. It was interesting. There was a lot of change. There was a lot of uncertainty. And so we felt like we could make a niche there. So kind of what I'm doing now is I'm consulting with a lot of companies. Tune in Seattle is one of them. They're a marketing measurement company, especially in mobile. Read Write Labs in San Francisco, a couple others. And I still write for Forbes and Inc., which, as I mentioned, I cannot not do. So that's kind of who I am and where I am right now.
Wow. And guess who got to join us? Kelly's here. Yay!
Hey, I'm so sorry that I'm late, John. Oh, I so appreciate your patience and you're willing to kind of move things around.
We're very glad you're here. And we're basically going with this and starting this conversation. And I'm so excited with what you just shared, John, because, this, yes, marketing technology is exploding. Okay, so, all right, VentureBeat, consulting, marketing solutions, marketing technology, writing. Yeah, I can tell you've got both right and left brain and all that good stuff that people talk about, but especially the writing, to be able to stay in that in that space and have to express yourself in that way. I get it. That you found your niche, obviously, with the articles that I've read, definitely. So with that in mind and where you came from, what life factors, what events caused you to choose this industry, to cause you to actually go into more of marketing technology?
It was the confluence of things. I don't know. I could be wrong. There may be some unicorns out there, some amazing people who have their life planned out and mapped out, and they see it from the beginning, and they go and they achieve it, and it's incredible and wonderful and amazing. I haven't met anybody like that. I don't know. But I can only make sense of my life looking backwards, which is kind of funny if I'm sort of a futurist. So,
right? Yes.
Hey, but then you can predict, right? You can look at trends, right?
I can predict in reverse, which is very, very 100% accuracy. Amazing. So, it's just, you never know which experiences you have are going to set up the next opportunities in your life. You never know. And it's been interesting. Into each life, a little lemon must drip, I guess, if I'm going to massacre the metaphor.
Yeah, and sting.
And all of us have had that. We've had career setbacks. We've had challenges. We've had, this didn't work out. That startup didn't go. This gig really didn't happen the way I wanted it to. And I've had those as well. And yet, every single one of those experiences has led me to something that's the next step that has been better. So there's got to be some kind of faith looking forward that whatever you've done in the past is going to build to something. And fortunately for me, that has.
Wow.
That's great. It's great to be able to say that and, have confidence in that. Because I think a lot of people look at their past and say, oh, why did I waste so much time doing this? But to have the attitude that it's there for a purpose.
Mm-hmm,
I love that.
mm-hmm,
and to trust yourself that you're going to make out of it whatever you need to make out of it, I think is the difficulty for most of us. And I include me in that, in getting over some of those difficulties, is to then look forward and just trust, all right, the next thing's going to come. I'm going to take the lessons with me and do the best I can with what I got.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what, can you get into some of the major obstacles that you had? Because we want to learn from them, obviously. Unlike our children, hopefully our marketing futurists can learn from our mistakes. So some of those obstacles and how you actually overcame them to be able to get where you are.
Yeah, I think a real big obstacle is data. We're drowning in data right now, and the question is, which data do you pay attention to? Which data matters, and which data is correct? We're in this era of fake news, where how do you know that that's true? And it's a very interesting time. There's challenges because a lot of the data that's being released right now is being released with a purpose in mind. There's a lot of content marketing. I create some of that myself. I do research for companies in some cases and find interesting things and release that. And you've got to be able to look at data and say, hey, what makes sense? What fits together? You got to be able to analyze what data actually matters and what data doesn't matter. And one of the things that we did when we built VB Insight, which was the research firm that I launched as part of VentureBeat, we really had this sort of big data, little data kind of metaphor, kind of construct, where we wanted to see what we called big data, which was device level data. Device level data. So whether it was from, in most cases, is from mobile, obviously, that's where the digital ecosystem is these days, but it could be from other devices, wearables, could be from desktops, could be from other technologies as well. But we wanted to see hard data that was hard to gain. And we wanted then to combine that with what we called little data, which was softer, more survey-based data, because I don't trust surveys. People say what they say. They say what they think that somebody expects them to say. They say what they're feeling that day because they had a bad day or they had a great day or whatever. They don't remember how many hours or minutes they spent doing this. They don't remember what they did in full detail, so they'll construct a reality that makes sense. But that is still incredibly valuable. And when you compare the hard data, the device level data with some soft data, the feeling, the emotion, the constructs that we build around the things that we do. I found that in that interplay, there's something really, really interesting. That was one of the challenges then. What data do you look at? How do you combine that? How do you put that together? What do you do? Another challenge, and I think this is a challenge for marketing futurists in general, and it's not so much about being a marketer or a futurist, is building an economic model for what you do. So you, Mary and Kelly, you guys are very, very cool. You have your agencies, you do your work, you're doing this as well, the summit and other things like that. You've built economic models that fit what you do and work for you. And everybody who is a marketing futurist has to build an economic model. In some cases, that's working for a particular company, and that can be great. That can also be limiting because you're with one company, one data set. It can be challenging depending on where you are in the space, how prominent the company is, how much data you have access to. In my case, the economic model I've built around what I do is based on consulting with major contracts. I don't do one-offs. I don't do, hey, can you do this post, or hey, can you do this one report or something like that. It's not interesting to me. It's not worth my time. It's not valuable. And I have to look for something else every 2 weeks, or, I'm not interested. I don't want to do that. So consulting with long-term contracts, but then also with a base of journalism on the bottom. And I love that for a lot of reasons. There's some economics in it, absolutely, but there's also just keeping really tight to what's happening, what's new, and what's coming out. So that's kind of some of the obstacles that I've had, and some of the ways that I've worked to overcome them. I guess one more would be, if you're going to be some level of a futurist, you have to have some way of anticipating where things are going. And seeing the direction and the flow of where things are going is one thing, right? That many people can do that. And that's why a decade ago, everybody was a social media marketing expert. That's why today, everybody's a crypto expert. It's amazing.
Right, yes.
Incredible.
Same thing with bots. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the same thing with bots. There's
chat bots. Yeah,
chat
messenger
bots.
marketing. Same thing. Everybody.
Exactly. So everybody can see where things are, where there's a hype cycle building and everything like that. The question is to lift the gaze a little bit higher and to see, okay, what's over that hill? And is there sustaining innovation in this model? Or is this a flash in the pan? Or is this a feature of a future product? So there's lots of challenges in those sorts of things.
Wow. Okay, so I don't know, Kelly, go ahead. Do you have something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's a great differentiation between not just being able to see what's coming, but beyond the horizon, and how is that technology or that thing going to play out its life cycle.
And the only way I think you can do that is through experience and through living through some of the others, right? And you look at, okay, I saw email marketing evolve into this thing, and I saw, this other thing evolve into this. So, and you look at not just the one, not micro climates, but looking at the whole ecosystem of marketing and how that fits into it. I get that. And I need to know something you just brought up, which is that intersection between the big data and the soft data, or the true data and the soft data. Okay, you said there were some interesting things that you came up with there, with that intersection between how we look at ourselves and feel about ourselves emotionally in that soft data, and what actually works and what we actually do with that. Is there anything more you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, there's an art to looking at data, right? And I certainly like to put the hard data with that sort of perceptual data. I'm going to trust the hard data in most cases, that's what's actually happening. I'm not going to necessarily understand why from the hard data. There's what, but not why. And one without the other doesn't work, because we have to understand motivations in order to be good marketers, good futurists, good business people, right? If we don't understand motivations, then we don't understand kind of the human element of things. If we don't see the patterns of usage, activity, other things like that from the hard data, then we don't see the big picture either. But combining the two is the what and the why. I think that's what gives us true insight.
So to be able to use both, so it doesn't mean you don't do surveys at all, but you can do them with the glasses, the rose-colored glasses, to know that this isn't hard data, this isn't true, this is just possibly the why, to understand the real data when you look back at your.
And I'll color that just a little bit. So in terms of surveys not being true, I wouldn't say exactly that. I would say if I'm asking people in a survey, how many times a week do you do X or something like that, I am not feeling confident when I get that data that is absolutely 100% true. It's their perception of it. Right. That is true. Yeah. Their perception of what they're doing is true. I believe that. So, and that's valuable as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Looking beyond the exact words that they're using and inferring why they said those words and what's behind it. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Wow. So what, in this industry, it's a huge industry, marketing technology, what drives you nuts? What drives you nuts about this industry?
Two things. One, I'll just briefly mention, that's the Insta experts we just talked about. And it was somebody I was just at one of my friends who was just at South by, and, everybody was a social media expert today. They're a crypto expert, all that stuff. That's one thing. What does drive me nuts as well, though, is the massive flow of marketing technologies that are out there. It's almost impossible for a marketer to be able to manage and focus. You essentially have to ignore. You have to be very, very good at ignoring a lot of things in order to be a good marketer, because you have a variety of things that come out of that. You have the shiny new toy syndrome, where there's always another tool that if you just had that tool, then you would have perfect insight. Then you'd have amazing engagement. Then you would have, then the doors would open and the pearly gates are open wide.
And it's shining bright and beautiful and you have everything you ever wanted. Yeah.
Yes, that is marketers are pretty optimistic people in a lot of cases, and there's that myth there, right? And there's a big piece in that gets missed, that in all this technology, which is wonderful and amazing, and incredible, and I use some of it, and I help produce some of it, and other things like that. There's pieces of marketing that have not changed since the dawn of time, when you were offering a better rock to Og in the cave in exchange for some meat or something like that, whatever it was, some berries that he had gathered or she had gathered, right? There are pieces that have not changed, and human nature has not changed. And that is really, really critical. And the creativity, the data is incredibly important. The creativity is incredibly important. And as you know, the product is probably more important than both of them put together.
Absolutely. And, we hit upon this theme over and over and over again, that at the end of the day, it's about the humans. Data and tools and technology is nothing without the understanding that we're people behind it all, and people have real emotions and real life experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah. And real needs, and marketers are trying to satisfy those needs. Hello. That's yeah. So where do you see the future of marketing going? I mean, look over that hill and kind of raise your gaze a bit, and all these wonderful tools and technologies that you write about and that you're helping develop and that you're helping analyze. Where do you see it all going?
Sure. So that's tied pretty tightly with my vision of where technology is going, where matter is going. And it's something that I call smart matter, which is what we're seeing more and more of around us everywhere, where we're putting chips, sensors, actuators or motors and radios into virtually everything around us. And I'm not just talking about smartwatches or phones or cars or, TVs or things that are technology per se. I'm talking about doors, walls, windows, you name it, roofs, those sorts of things. We're putting the technology to understand, to sense, to react, to act, and to communicate into virtually everything. We see this in the smart home revolution. We see this in IoT and industrial IoT. At CES in January, I saw some technology, $14 chipset, which gets you Google Assistant in whatever product you might have, a teddy bear, you name it, whatever, a water bottle, anything that you might want. And I just wrote about Kohler has a smart mirror to put in your bathroom, which has Alexa embedded. So I don't know if you want that. There's no camera, but
Yikes.
it's not Echo Show, but you can Alexa in your bathroom. So you may or may not like that. Your call. But the point is that we're building smart matter. We're building smart products. That's a different experience as a owner, a buyer, as well as a different experience as a brand, a manufacturer. Really different, right? So in the a decade ago, 5 years ago, a brand and a buyer interact episodically, perhaps in the store, perhaps on the website, perhaps in the app, wherever it is. There's this episode of exchange of value. And as marketers, we've always wanted to know what happened before that to make that happen. Right. What happens after that to make it more likely I can make it happen again, right? Well, guess what? When you have a smart product, whether it's a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, a Nest, something else that's attached to your EV charger that tells you how much your car is charged, how much electricity you've used, and how much it costs, all that stuff, it's not an episode. It's not one time. And essentially what you do, you have a brand walking through life with you. That's interesting. It's revolutionary. It's different. It's scary. It's a lot of different things, but you're walking together in life. And that product is now not stationary because you are teaching that product about yourself. And when you're teaching that product about yourself, you're teaching a brand about yourself. And you're teaching a brand, and a brand, if they're smart, are learning and they're adapting and they're making that product better, smarter, different all the time. Alexa's never the same. Right? Alexa's starting to talk to me. Sorry about that.
You got to change her name. My son changed her name. Exactly, it's now called Computer. Exactly. She's not called Alexa.
Precisely. So, but you keep getting these emails. If you've got an Echo or anything like that, and Google Home, and I've got both right here, and here's what Alexa can do today. Here's what Alexa can do this week. Here's what Google Home can do this week. And it's changing, it's growing, it's getting better. That means it can become more and more of an assistant, can become more and more of a valued member of my life, of my family, almost, in a sense. That's different. Now the customer journey isn't just random points popping up and, how can I make sense of these? How do I sort of draw a line and kind of reinterpret look in the rear view mirror? This is what happened. I'll decide that, and then I'll know how to make it happen again with other people. Now it's not a nice concept, but an impossible dream. It becomes real because you're walking through life with your customer. There are some pitfalls and dangers in that, right? There are that, data privacy is a big deal. Who are we when we're being watched? Right? Yeah. Is our smart home spying on us as much as it's helping us, right? There's some challenges there. There's no doubt about it. But it's a totally different way of being, a way of buying or owning a product, and also interacting with the brand.
And that's new. That's just in the last, decade that we've been experiencing that?
Less,
so,
yeah.
Think 20, 30, 40 years from now, what is that experience going to be like? I love that.
Yeah. And I hear you with some of the pitfalls. The first thing that came to my mind is Enron, right? Or some of these other companies that, and of course they weren't as much in our lives as say Alexa is, but as we get these companies and these brands and these products and we become dependent on them. Okay. So let's say my door now, again, I'm a Trekkie, love Star Trek. So now let's say my door just slides open when I walk up to it because it senses who I am and it knows that it's my door and it won't open for anybody else. So now that company does something and goes belly up. Does my door still work? Do all the products in my home still work? How do I then transfer those and take out the chips of this one and put it? So lots of, as these companies become so intertwined in our daily lives, and especially the large, let's say Alexa, let's say Google takes over all of that. Let's say Amazon takes over almost all of it. And now we're so dependent on that company and that brand. What happens?
Yeah, it's very interesting. What, not only the scenarios that you mentioned, but what if your smart home manufacturer, your smart door manufacturer sells your biometric signature, so that when you go to the mall or you go to whatever public building, that door opens for you, and there's maybe some benefit, but is there some cost to that, right?
Yeah.
We don't know the answers to these questions. What we do know is there's going to be lots of mistakes. We've seen that in IoT. We've seen that in the botnets that have been created with IoT devices, just connected cameras with no security. It's admin is the username, and the password is a default across everybody. And you can build a bot and do a distributed denial of service attack. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of missteps here.
Yeah.
But we're going to eventually, I think, own an AI individually as a family in some way, shape, or form, which will help us. And I'm talking, this is 30, 40, 50 years out. It's going to help us manage and control that data and do sort of permissioned releases of that on case-by-case basis, as well as more long-term scenarios, and help us kind of manage and assist us in a lot of the things. We'll have a Google Assistant. We'll have an Alexa that is more ours than the ones that we currently use.
Mm-hmm. So, and I may not be hitting on the right words here, but what you're saying is almost a universal protocol or language that we're not relying on the big companies to manage it all, that if they disappear, we can still have that functionality and that data.
If you look at the world of software, we've solved these sorts of things with APIs. Mm-hmm. If you look at where APIs have gone, when APIs first came out, it's amazing, it's incredible. This piece of software can talk to this piece of software. It's a sort of a protocol engagement. You understand the communication. There you go. And then that became like, wow, there's millions of APIs. How do we manage this? It's impossible. And then you have companies like Segment or Particle coming out, and then you're saying, you know what? Hey, connect with us, and we'll automatically connect to any other API, but we'll actually keep all the data internally, right? And so then you can do interesting things with it, and you can do things like, you know what? There's this cool new tool that I want to add, but if I only connect it directly, then it'll only get forward-looking data. So my actual ROI is 8 months, 10 months, 16 months out or something like that. But if I use one of these connectors that has my historical data and I connect it in there, then I can get historical data and I can start getting ROI immediately. Well, if we take that to the personal realm and we say, hey, you know what, here's my connector, the John Koetsier connector, and here's my personal data. I can plug new tools into that. I can plug old tools out of that. It's got some standard protocols in there. And so my smart door that recognizes me and opens when I come up, I replace the door because there's a better door, and it has smarter biometrics. So it can't be fooled with somebody with a face mask anymore and steal all my stuff, right? That, we're going to see some things along that line.
That is so exciting. I'm just like, when can we get that?
I know. No. What I'm thinking is, okay, I got to get my sons on this, because if this is coming in 30 years, I'm probably not going to be in this world in the same way that I am now.
You might be a brain in a tube or
there
something.
There you go. Hey, no problem. As long as I can still talk and I can still write, and mainly still talk because I'm a talker. So yeah. Wow. I mean, that's what an amazing concept to actually be able to, and I hope this can all fit into our society with governments and brands and businesses and all of that coming together, because, all of those things have to happen in order for this to be successful. But what an amazing idea that we can actually, instead of being afraid of this whole data breach and all those kinds of things, that we can actually have our control of at least perceived control over our own stuff and over our own choices and data, and what new industries that is going to produce.
It's incredible. What we have to thank for that is Europe, right? Europe is pushing on data privacy and security, GDPR, right? What we also see, although we don't see it at the federal level in the United States, we see at the state level. California, for instance, is pursuing something that's GDPR-like, ownership of your data, right? And that is interesting. That is what's going to open the door some of this innovation on the personal level here, whereas we've only seen innovation around personal data on a broad scope level like a Facebook or a Twitter or something like that, a Google even, right? And so if you look at the companies that we've had come up in this era of broadly available data, we sell our data for web search so that we can search the web. We sell our data so that we can connect with our friends. We sell our data so that we can get a better experience with our Nest or something like that. We still have companies like Apple that are really, really hardcore about not using that data. What are we going to get when we have more companies that are in the GDPR era, that are in era when California and maybe some East Coast states pass some pretty restrictive laws around the usage of data? What's that going to look like? I think we're going to see an explosion of personal utility tools over the next decade in response to that.
And people are going to need help navigating that and understanding how to use that. And how that
AI is going to take over the world. We'll spend our days painting and singing and dancing. And
wouldn't that be wonderful? I'll sign up for that. Just give me a place in Hawaii to do that, and I'm good. Or actually,
daycare.
The Italian Alps. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. So, where to go with that, Kelly? How do we bring that back to earth and try and give? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask. So based on what you've just told us, what tools or what tips can you give our audience to give them this futurist advantage so that they can start setting themselves up for taking advantage of this future that you've just laid out for us?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, and I'll start with one that's probably pretty obvious, and then go to one that's a little bit annoying. The one that's pretty obvious is talk to a lot of people, listen to a lot of people, communicate with a lot of people, connect with a lot of people, whether that's virtually on LinkedIn or Twitter or whether that's in person at conferences. The only way you learn is by opening yourself up to new experiences, and having the kind of attitude of seeking them out, looking for them, wanting them, valuing them, and then kind of taking this piece and that piece and this piece and kind of smushing them together. What if? And having some interesting conversations inside your own brain, sometimes in a column or other places around that. The second piece that I'll mention, which is maybe a little bit more annoying, is listen to people that you disagree with. Talk to people you disagree with or that you think are wrong or insane or different thing. Our biggest impulse sometimes is to find reasons why we believe what we want to believe. This is why fake news is such a big deal, right? That's one of the reasons behind that. We want to find reasons why we're right. And we have to be open to finding things that change my thinking, that change my basic conception of what exists and what is and therefore what will be. And so there's a couple of people that I have connections with in real life or in social that freaking annoying people. Really annoying people. Hate them in some cases, just rude in some cases, or just they're smart. And they have good ideas and they challenge. And there's value in that. It's very tempting to mute or block in some cases. And so I'm not talking about abusive people, obviously. Right. So I want to clarify that real quick. Right. But just people who may be really blunt and have different opinion and reasons behind it. And I want to listen to those. I want to keep them in my social ecosystem, virtual or actual analog. And that challenges. And that makes me not only rethink in some cases, but maybe it confirms what I'm thinking in some cases, but it makes me rethink that and make sure that I'm on solid footing, find evidence for it, and at least consider alternatives. And I think that's very, very useful. Mm-hmm. And that's be a challenging process to challenge our preconceptions, but it can often be a worthwhile process.
Absolutely. And I think, you're hitting on that in that is a huge ailment that we have in society right now, that we're so big on universal acceptance of everybody. but only if they agree with what I agree with, or only if they have the same views that I have. And so I think that is, in many ways, that is a fix to many of the problems we face in society, is just truly being more open and willing to hear the other side and break that down and say, well, why do they feel that way? What is it that they're experiencing in life that gives them that objective view?
Without judgment. Okay, because usually we'll ask, why do they feel that way? Because they're evil and terrible and stupid and all those terrible things. Yeah. But really without that judgment, and really try and understand from their perspective. And I think you're right. I think that one concept could be the antidote to many of the pitfalls that you just outlined as well with this future. If some of those pitfalls, if we just look at these other ideas, even if they disagree with ours, from an objective, non-judgmental place, not that we have to accept them, not that we have to promote them, but really look at them and ask ourselves questions, deep questions, not just where can I find customers? That may be some of the antidote that we might need to some of the pitfalls in this future. So
I agree. And it requires one thing. It requires a willingness to put the truth above winning. That almost never happens in politics these days. But it should happen personally. It should happen in politics. It should happen in marketing departments. And let the data speak. Let it be right. Let it be good data. Let's question the data. Let's question the sources. Let's question the construction of it. Absolutely. But let's value the truth, which I do believe exists in this era of fake news, over winning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And that's really the crux of this whole abundance mentality, right? When we get rid of this challenge and this competition of there's only a little piece of this pie that we've all got to go after. Once we get rid of that, this is really fundamentally what we're talking about, is just don't worry about winning. Worry about doing your best and producing the correct data and the truth and all, and providing the value, and all will work out fine. I think, we keep coming back to this, Kelly, this whole kumbaya idea, right?
I know.
This whole thing of, we are human beings. It's okay to let go of some of this stuff. It really is, it behooves us all. It serves us all to treat people this way and to act this way ourselves. John, thank you so much for sharing your amazing marketing futurist personality, data, life with us. And we truly look forward to continuing to follow you, continuing to tap into, hopefully we'll be invited to be able to do that, or accepted to do that, to continue to follow you and tap into some of the things that you're working on, because you have just, again, blown our minds.
Absolutely.
Right, Kelly? I mean, every time we talk.
Absolutely. There's just so much wealth of knowledge that you have that it was fascinating to listen to. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, guys.
Get your Futurist Advantage by joining our Facebook group at marketingfuturist.co/group, and tune in for our next journey into the future of marketing.